I was tasked with building a sales team. And, it comes down to people always. I mean, that's why we have a relationship.
Yep.
But I took a lot of time to hire really good people and was fortunate enough to work with some really good recruiters and headhunters to find the right types of folks. And when I brought them on board, I just really put a lot of effort into building a strong culture, one where you can be friends, you can enjoy the interactions that you have, but there's a high expectation of working hard.
Hello, everyone. My name is Parth Patani. I am your host for Robot Forward Warehousing Podcast. And today I'm joined by Joe Mahaney from Ambi Robotics, the legend, the myth. He has been a great friend for the industry, great friend of mine. We know each other for, I would say, a few years now. We started back in BG. I have a very specific story about Joe, and that's how I remember. Before I go into that, I'll let Joe introduce himself, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Parth. Yeah, as Parth said, I'm Joe Mahaney, currently with Ambi Robotics. I'm the VP of Sales there. I'm very fortunate to be there. And I've been in the automation space selling to fulfillment warehouses for the past 12 years now. So it's very exciting. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, and Parth's one of my favorite people. So really happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. So yeah, Joe, the story about you, right? So I don't know if you remember, but when you joined the first day, we used to have stand-ups at BG, right?
Mhm.
And you made a joke about a robot crossing the road or something like that. That stuck with me. Like it's one of the life lessons that I take. And so I appreciate that. I think it was a very good life lesson that I had there. So, and that's why I had this story that I wanted to share with you, because it was pretty interesting joke that you did, and it was the room was laughing, which was great.
It wasn't a good joke though. My son told me. I remember it was why did the robot cross the road?
Correct. Yeah, something like
Because
that.
it was
No, I
programmed
mean,
by a chicken. It's a terrible joke.
that's dad jokes, right? So that's the best part, and that's how you learn. Say, I started doing dad jokes now, so my friends hate me for that. So no, I think that's good start. I think so, Joe. I know you. One of the things that I really enjoy talking to and learning from you is like the vast experience that you have when it comes to scaling organizations, sales teams specifically, of course the overall organization as well, and sales team specifically, from your experience at pack size and going into Berkshire Gray, and then currently at Ambi. So all these companies, I feel like they're always on forefront of innovation, forefront of a lot of new technologies. And so from your side, from a sales perspective, how has your been journey of scaling that sales organization? And two would be like, what things really helped you be there, and what things you tried and test and didn't work out, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess most of that experience really goes back to my time at Pack Size. I was there for 10 years. I started selling, and like a lot of things, you get promoted, you do a good job, and I was tasked with building a sales team. And it comes down to people always. I mean, that's why we have a relationship.
Yep.
But I took a lot of time to hire really good people, and was fortunate enough to work with some really good recruiters and headhunters to find the right types of folks. And when I brought them on board, I just really put a lot of effort into building a strong culture, one where you can be friends, you can enjoy the interactions that you have, but there's a high expectation of working hard. And I got very lucky with the people that we had, and there was like this very friendly competition amongst the team. We're always
Nice.
pushing each other. I remember we used to do things well, red team is like the real word, but we called it a green team because pack size was so green, in
Yep.
which somebody put a proposal together and they would have a presentation ready for one of their customers, and they'd give it to us as the whole team, and we pick it apart and
Oh, wow.
beat the
Nice.
crap out of it. And I don't know, it's just a really great environment where you wanted to work, you felt kind of obligated to your team, like you would in like the sports team, to do a great job. And that just really served me well. And from a leadership perspective, it's really it's a strange thing because I was thrust into leadership very early in my career back when I sold copy machines. I was like 24
Oh,
and I had
wow.
to build a
Nice.
team in Boston. And I always think back to all the mistakes I made. And there's a big thing with like you're trying to act the way you think you're supposed to act as a leader, as a boss, right? You have to be hard nosed, you have to hold people accountable. And those things are all important. They're not important. But in that, you tend to lose who you are as a person. So
Good point.
what I learned kind of doing it again at pack size was that you can't abandon who you are as a person, and you have to really invest in the people. And sometimes people don't work out, and that's okay,
Yeah.
But if my opinion is, if I'm going to hire you on board and you're going to be working on our team, I'm going to give you every chance to succeed. And if you still can't succeed after all that, then we kind of know where that goes.
And I think that's a great point. I think one of the things that I'm also actually I recently got asked this question, like, what's my role as a leader? And one of the things that it feels like you hit a point is like enabler, right? I'm an enabler as a leader to help you be there, help you succeed in whatever task you're taking on. So I think that's a great point. Agreed, completely agreed there. Um, again, this is not going to be a question, but I feel like you have so much knowledge that I want to get all the things out of you, tear it apart. But I think the next thing that comes to my mind when I think about your experience, your exposure to different industries, like how do you see the industry itself adopting new warehouse technologies, adopt like automation, robotics? Like, what are you seeing in the industry? What just
Yeah.
paint a picture for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about that a lot lately, especially in my current role at Ambi, where technology is always like like going up. Everything's getting better and better over time, and I think we're in a weird spot right now, at least the way I see it, in that coming out of 2020 and all the craziness that was going on, there was this spike in demand and interest in robotics and automation. You had a hard time getting people, volumes are going crazy, so companies were very excited and interested in bringing in automation. However, compared to where we are today, automation was light years behind where it is today. Like 2 years ago, it wasn't as fast, it wasn't as tried and true, it hadn't been deployed as much. So when you had that spike, what you saw was a few players who rose to the occasion because they were ready in that moment. You think of the Locust Robotics, you think of the Auto Store, some of the goods to person companies out there. A lot of the mobile robots did extremely well because their product had been around a while and it was ready for showtime. But then when you look at like the robotic arm, piece picking, AI driven solutions, it was great. I don't know if it was quite ready for the game time that was in front of them back then. So
Yeah.
then you have a lot of pilots, a lot of trials. You saw tons of things on LinkedIn about so and so's doing this and they're getting deployed, and there's all this energy in the market. And then, as time goes on, it got a little more uncertain, right? Like all of a sudden, the volumes are dropping. The orders weren't there. Nobody knew what peak season was going to be like in 2023. There's all this apprehension. The technology continued to improve and was actually improving at a faster rate because there was a lot more energy in the market. However, that initial spike, I think, took the wind out of some, buyers and operators' sales because they kind of had a bad experience. And now you mix that with this sort of uncertainty in the market, and you're left with people that are super apprehensive to make a decision. But I think the pressure is still there. It's still hard to find people. Wages are going up. Like all the same challenges remain. But I think we're just trying to get things going again because there really has been great improvements. And I'll use Ambient as an example. We were fortunate enough to be one of those companies that were adopted back then by Pitney Bowes. It's all over. But we designed a solution. Back then, it was going at like 250 sorts an hour to kind of put things in perspective. And it was just enough to get that initial order. And we did. And we deployed, right now we've got 80 systems out there.
Nice.
Actually, more than 80. But so the fact of the matter is that like we were able to capitalize in that time, and we've grown so much since then. And now our systems going into this year are going to be over 500. So,
nice.
So like everything continues to improve, everything continues to get better. And I just think we need the market to now catch back up, regain the confidence, and look for those players that out there that do have mature, stable systems that can be deployed and can deliver the value they need going into this peak season.
That's actually a great point. I think this is the second similarities that I'm seeing is like you need a compelling event for an industry to or a catalyst to move forward. I think going back to my days, I had to start staying at a software company called OneTrust, and it was pretty much the compelling event for them was a new EU law, which is called GDPR law, and it really was a compelling event, and it really propelled their, I would say, growth. And I think similar for us in warehouse robotics and automation space, it was COVID. It was unfortunate event, but it was a blessing in disguise for a lot of automation companies or robotics companies, especially for people in robotics space as well. So no, agreed to that. And I think your point around the mixed bag of things people experienced during the COVID and coming
Right.
out of it, yeah, I think it's still, there is still a need, but I think it's not gonna be the super speed that it was, supersonic speed it was during the COVID. But yeah, to your point, agreed. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
but
awesome.
it's
No,
still there. I still
yeah,
think, companies need to automate. I mean, you know this in your
hmm,
role.
yeah,
They have to do it, but I think they're just a little bit more pragmatic about it, and they want to do their homework.
yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the things that I see happening a lot is to protect themselves. And I would probably do the same thing is when you're
yeah,
comparing a solution to whatever the current state is, which is usually some sort of manual process, you know, well, the manual process, we're going to take the highest possible rate, the highest possible performance of a person over the longest period of time as our baseline.
yeah,
And then we're going to take whatever the robot system says and take 25% off the top. And then you end up with these kind of like, ROIs and business
yeah.
cases after you do that. But I do think that I think they'll companies will start to pull the trigger on piloting and really comparing things in the real world, which is what you have to do with the new
Yeah.
technology. And I think the market certainly embraces that, and I think it's going to come back around again. I think companies are going to be surprised at what they see and what's happened over the past 2 years and how far
Hmm.
the technology has come.
That's true actually. So in that conversation, just trying to understand, do you see companies very much getting focused on capex models or the RAS models or some kind of leasing? Like, what are the creative ways folks are thinking about financing their automation play?
Yeah, I think I mean, Raz it's unbelievable how
Okay.
quickly that's come to the surface. And, we're seeing large, typically CapEx heavy organizations now
Hmm.
transition to look at Raz as a primary
Oh,
option.
oh,
Um,
nice.
but in those organizations, they have a lot to learn. If they haven't
Yeah.
done it in the past, they've got to train their internal systems to analyze things on
Mm,
OpEx basis versus the CapEx, which can take some time and education and whatever.
that's
But
true.
I still think it's going to be a hybrid. I mean, long term, I think CapEx is probably the way to go. If you're
Okay.
looking at something over
Mm,
a long period of time. However, if you look at technology evolving at the pace it is, like I was talking about with my line there,
yep.
a RAS is a really valid option for you because, in 4 years or so, you may be looking at new technology, the next thing.
Correct.
And you also, and I feel for customers because retailers, 3PLs, they're all still trying to figure out what the right way is to get product to their customer. And
Mhm.
if you shift to more local inventory, local distribution, your network looks one way. If you do more
Yep.
centralized distribution to capitalize on your inventories and not have to spread it out all over the place, it looks a different way. And that can
Mhm.
change year to year, season to season. So I get it. It's not
Yeah.
easy for people to make
Yeah.
those choices.
And that's what I'm seeing as well. I feel like there is a mixed bag of it. Of course, I think most of the bigger top 10, let's say, they have the funding that they can go and buy
Sure.
buy outright.
Yeah.
But there are also like 3PLs, mid-size to mid-grade to low grade, not grades, but mid-size to low size 3PLs. They typically try to do the RAS models because that way they don't have to spend out of their pockets because they're
Yeah.
always usually cash strapped on that. So yeah, a good
Yeah.
point.
Sure.
That's what I'm seeing as well, which is aligned.
Yeah.
Okay, so next one is very important for me. I think the way I'm thinking about this is like there are two parts of it, right? One is from the end user perspective, and then next is from the robotics vendors perspective, right?
Hmm.
So this is where I feel like I think industry as a overall industry, right? We are, as going back to the initial points, technology is going fast. Things are advancing really well, in terms of AI algorithms and ML and everything, right? So there are, market is going fast while the individuals are still learning about it, right? So sales team,
Hmm.
myself as end users, everyone is learning about it. So
Right.
so from your sales side, let's talk about your responsibility from a sales side, right? How do you or what has worked best for building a sales team, building a technical sales team as well, when it comes to building a team for a robotics company,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Educate them on them, and then of course the educating end customers for your product. So what techniques have worked, what strategies have you implemented, what worked, what didn't work, anything around that would be great perspective.
Yeah, I don't have a great perspective because, in fact, we have a very small team at Ambi. It's myself, it's another gentleman, John Zaremba, and our marketing team. We're heavily supported by our whole company supports us. Our CTO is
Mhm.
on most of our calls, our head of product. Like we really, it's a team effort, which is really
Nice.
exciting. So the scaling piece, but I can definitely talk about what I've observed in the market.
Mhm.
And there's this core theory that I have in so as an investment you put robotics in this technology space, right? And historically, technology investments have been driven by software.
Mhm.
And the beautiful thing about software is that it scales in such a linear fashion, and it's super easy to go from, you know, $1 million in sales to $100 million in scales, and there's a very easy equation that gets you there, right? And from a
Mhm.
sales and go to market perspective, it's the same equation every time. There's marketing, there's lead generation. The more leads you create, the more MQOs, marketing qualified opportunities you can hit off to sales, and then you demo the sales, and then you demo close, and there's a calculation that makes that work. And I think that some of the mistakes I've seen in the industry is this over hiring on the go to market team,
Mhm.
which follows that same linear fashion. You think if I have this many salespeople, it's going to lead to this number of dollars.
Yeah.
And in our world, Parth, that's not how it works. I mean, we're
Yeah.
deploying. I mean, you're
You're doing
you're
very well.
you're running, 500,000 square foot facilities with people, technology, and we're selling equipment that is like bolted to the ground,
Yep.
and it's in your firewalls. You have people interacting with it. There's safety. It's huge pieces of capital equipment. You're changing processes before the system and after the system, and also on top of that, working with some of the largest corporations in the world,
Yep.
it doesn't work like that.
Yep.
So I think that as I look at our sales organization, we should be the technology should be outpacing the sales people in that. And I'll give you another example of what happens is if you build a huge sales engine and you have one good product, let's say,
Mhm.
what's going to happen is that sales engine is going to go out there, and if it's designed the right way, which people know how to do that, it's going to bring massive opportunities in.
Mhm.
But they're going to be edge case opportunities. They're like, hey,
Yep.
this would be great if we could take this system, but it did just something a little bit different. And now you're
Yep.
asking your engineering team to make these modifications, which are costly, and it's taking them away from what they should be doing. And it has this like trickle down effect where it really kind of clogs up the entire system. And
Mhm.
then 2 years down the road, you look back, you're like, well, we didn't get the sales we wanted. We
Yep.
haven't innovated as much because we've been trying to like put these square pegs in the round holes,
Yep.
and you're kind of scratching your head as to what happened. So I think that in this space, my opinion is that you should scale your team kind of after the technology and
Mhm.
really try to do as much as you can with a very small condensed team, which answers your first question about training and development and getting people up to speed.
Yeah.
Because when you hire 100 people, it's really hard to get them all up to speed and
Oh
train
yeah.
them. But
Yep.
when you have small groups, there's a lot of support and you learn
Yep.
as you go. I'm still learning. Like
Yep.
I would like to tell you I know exactly how AI works and neural
Yeah.
nets are. I don't, but
Yeah.
I'm way further along than I was a year ago or 2 years
Uh,
ago.
and I think you bring a very good point. I think that's and sometimes I feel like that's on your point about building a sales team before such a big sales engine that yeah, not everyone gets a chance to learn about the product, really inside and outs of all the product. I feel like it also does injustice to the sales leaders who are getting hired to sell a product where they're not ready yet, because they go chase opportunities that might not work, and then eventually their job is at the stakes. And I felt like that's also injustice to them as well, because they left, let's say, a previous career to just promise on something new. And then
Yeah,
but yeah, so I think that agreed. And when you talk about the AI, I think next thing is about AI,
sure.
because
Tell
that's
me about
something
that.
I want to learn about it, right? So
Me
I
too.
know I have seen, sorry, go ahead.
Me too.
No, I think see, I have seen Pitney and Ambi right on LinkedIn. I actually talked to a couple of folks. They were operators at the one of the warehouses in Pitney Bowes. So it was good to learn about the system. They were pretty much, oh, yeah, it came and he did the job. I'm like, oh, cool, interesting. So that was good feedback from them, right? So that was a sorry, that was a real feedback from the operators, which was good. So let's talk about MBOS, right? The AI
Yeah.
operating system.
Hmm.
Tell me anything that you can. I know we
Yeah.
don't have Jay on this call, but tell me anything that you can share.
Yeah, so a couple things. So Ambi OS, as it kind of states, is the internal operating system, and it makes everything work. Uh, when I when we're selling like our sort to SAC system, which is our flagship system, right? When I talk to folks like yourself, operators, engineers, um, they don't really care about the AI. If I'm being honest, what they care about is okay, how much space does it take up? What does it do? How fast does it do it? How often do I have to interact with it? How do I train my people? They care about it as, and you would any other piece of equipment, right? Like I don't really know exactly all the components of the engine of my pickup truck, but I know I get in it and it's going to do certain things. And I feel like that's how
Sure.
most people care about it. But what's to try to break it down and go one level deeper,
Mhm,
AmbiOS makes everything work together. It makes the
mhm,
AI work with the robotic arm and the vision cameras. It's what is communicating back and forth. There's nothing novel like component wise in our systems. We've got a Yaskawa arm, we've got key and
mhm.
barcode scanners. There's servo motors and um, we do a little specialty in the gripper for sure. But aside from that, so you have to have all those things communicate well together, and they need to provide feedback and they need to get things in. So MBOS is just that interface. But from a customer's perspective, what I would care about is it is a beautiful interface to work with our system. So whether you're walking up to the system as an operator, logging into your preferred language, and seeing exactly what's going on with the system, that's what you care about. If there's something goes wrong, how intuitive it is and the videos it's showing you to help resolve those issues quickly, that's what I care about. And from your perspective, Parth, we have a wonderful dashboard, Ambi Access, which is part
Oh,
of
nice.
AmbiOS, where you can see your entire fleet of robots. It's warning you if there's something going on. There's a low pick success rate in Atlanta. Maybe there's too many full bags in Chicago, and maybe there's a staffing issue. So I look at it every single morning. I get a very good sense of how the entire fleet of robots is working, how fast they're running, and it really is the dashboard you're looking for to really manage these systems as a person. So that's
Makes
the
sense.
MBOS.
Yeah.
But the secret sauce is something called sim to real, simulation to reality training.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm kind of getting on the edge of what I really understand. So this is the layman's example of that, but it's like a cheat code. All right.
Hmm.
So like playing a video game, a cheat code might take you from level 1 to like level 10, like without having to do all the boring stuff in the beginning, get to the level you want to play. Right. That's like what a
Hmm.
cheat code is. And that's what Sim to real does. To train a robot, it's like a human, like you have kids, right? Like
Hmm.
when they're in the high chair and they're trying to pick up the little puffy thing, it takes like 5 tries, doesn't know how to do it, and it can't get in its mouth. That's what a robot is. And robots
Hmm.
learn like people do through trying things over and over and over and over, more and more data. And the more data it has, the better it gets at that job. The problem is in the real world, that takes forever,
Yeah.
right? It takes forever. If you're going to build a new product, it might take months or years to collect that data in the real world. What Sim2Real does is it does those scenarios
Hmm.
in like the virtual realm. And overnight, you can do a couple 100,000 repetitions of something and be instantly better tomorrow. So whether you're bringing a new product to light, which we're doing right now in the background,
Hmm.
which is fun to
Hmm.
watch, you're accelerating that process of bringing a new product to light. But it also helps as we sort packages. Maybe we have somebody decides to change their package and do something purple with sparkles all over it. That's hard
Hmm.
for our cameras to read. We can train our neural nets overnight with sim to real and be ready to do a better job tomorrow. So it's really this like
Nice.
amazing tool that was
Nice.
developed by our founders back in Berkeley
Oh,
that
nice.
continues to just help us stand out, help us be ready day one, and help us handle problems in real time.
That's true. That's true. Thinking about Berkeley, how is the travel, Joe? Going
Travel.
from East Coast to West Coast?
Yeah, I get out there. I love being out there. I love our team. It's so much fun. But
Nice.
Boston to San Francisco, I don't want to do that every week. I'm heading out there in a couple of weeks, and yeah, I
Nice,
try to
nice,
tie
awesome.
it around a key customer visit, coming to see our
Hmm.
facilities and things like that. We have obviously leadership meetings. It's not as bad as I thought. Actually, I've gotten better at the longer flights. You can get a lot
Nice.
of work done on a
Yeah, that's
six
true.
and a half hour flight. So
So,
I
oh,
save
that's
my
a
big
long flight
projects.
actually. I
Yeah,
didn't know.
yeah. You
Uh,
save your big
that's
projects for
awesome.
that long flight.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome. No, I think that brings me to, I think as you go on around the trips, talking to clients, talking to vendors, talking to probably VCs, and talking to leadership. Like one thing that you are seeing in the industry as an opportunity, right? That this is an opportunity that people should think about, or the robotics industries, or even the end users should think about. Is there any specific that stands out?
Um, Opportunities, I think that there's still some questions out there in terms of robots replacing people,
Hmm.
and that whole thing. And at least we don't look at it that way. We
Yeah.
look at it as we want to provide better jobs for the people that are there. So I think there's a huge opportunity to take these. I take Pitney for example, or OSM is another great example. They have such great teams that are in these buildings that keep them running day in and day out. And there's
Correct.
always the core group of people that is what keep the lights on. You've
Yeah,
got all
yeah,
the
that's
temporary
true.
workers that come in. There's all this turnover, but there's these core people that come to work and sweat it out every day. And deploying something like Ambi or any piece of technology helps them so much.
Yep.
Number one, it allows consistency. They have predictability in what they're doing day in and day out. It's enabling people there to not kill themselves physically, sorting
That's
packages
true.
for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. And what we see is that the robot operators get paid a little bit more. They have
Mhm.
higher retention.
Yep.
We go in there. You went to one of our sites. They love working with
Yeah.
the machines. It's a very
Yep.
pleasant experience. So I think that's the opportunity, is just to shift the mindset away from like, oh, we're taking away jobs. Oh, we're doing this, to more of like, hey, we're making this job way better for our people. It's easier to hire people because of this technology, and it keeps things going. That's what I think
Yep.
the big opportunity is that people may overlook.
Yeah.
And maybe I think I'm just on the topic of things that are
Yeah.
overlooked.
Sure.
Um, I think that in this space, nobody talks about service ever.
Hmm.
You ever
Interesting.
see a LinkedIn post about XYZ robotics company talking about their great service and their support
Yeah,
and
that is true.
response?
Actually,
You
it's all
don't.
about innovation right now. Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
about innovation. That's a good
yeah.
point. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a 20-year sales veteran. All we ever did was sell on service. When you sell copy machines door to door, like all
Yeah.
copy machines are the same. They all do the same crap. You have to lean on is the service, and I
Yeah.
think it's kind of a forgotten component that makes it all work together. In that, if you're going to make a big investment, try something new, you have to
Hmm.
have a team and a process behind it.
Hmm.
And I think we've done an amazing job at that, and we
That's good.
we go like above and beyond for our customers because they're so important.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't have 1,000 logos. We have to take care of the
Yeah.
logos we
Of
have.
course. Yeah.
And I would encourage my peers in the industry to really start leaning on that,
Hmm.
as first off, make sure you have it in place, but
Yeah.
also
Hmm.
make sure that your potential customers understand how important it is to you and how important it is to them.
Correct. And I think you bring up a good point. I think you have McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, but I prefer to go to Chick-fil-A, right? So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because of service, and I think that's actually a very important point that you raised there. I think, and agreed. I think most of the, and how I'm gonna pitch, I'm gonna ask when I go to Modex this year. I'm gonna ask like, hey, let's talk about your service.
Yeah.
That's a good
Well,
question.
how do you manage your
Yeah.
spares? Like, how do you get
Yeah.
spare parts? Do I
Correct.
keep them?
Yeah.
Do you keep them? Like, how do you keep
Yeah.
inventory? Like, all those things are what's important in the real world.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a good point. So, and at one point, I wanted to validate that you just mentioned about that folks on the operator side, they get better paid. They are looking for that better opportunity when it comes to robots, and I can validate that. I think we had one operator. He was basically a super user, if you will, who was on the floor
Mhm.
always, making sure that flow was fine.
Yeah.
And he saw an opportunity to work with the maintenance team, a robot maintenance team, and they are like, "Oh, can I interview for it?" And he had the grit. He wanted to work hard, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So
Mm.
to your point, I agreed.
Yeah.
I think folks are looking for that. They want to work with robots. They don't look at it as, "Oh my God, they're taking my job," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Oh, that's There are a lot of insights. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it. I
Yeah.
think this has been fun conversation. I think I learned a little bit about sales, a little bit about MB, a little bit about everything else. I think I might have to go back and re-hear it. But no, I think thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Any
Yep.
closing comments? Anything that you want to talk about?
Come to the dark side. Come to the sales, world. It's a lot of fun over here.
Yeah, I know it's fun actually. Sales is fun. I'm not gonna deny that. We had a fun trip in Louisville. Remember? Yeah, I know. Awesome. No, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining today.
Yep.
If this we are gonna do this more often, we're gonna bring the human side of folks who are actually changing the warehouse robotic space. So follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll see you again on the next one. Thank you.
You have been listening to Robot Forward Warehousing Podcast with Parth Pithan. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the show on your favorite podcast player. If you like what you heard, please rate us and help us reach more warehouse robotics practitioners. Thank you for listening. Until next time.